Hello, Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon on YouTube, and then I post it back up to Facebook. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. If you feel you need a therapist, please go to Google, type in therapy, your city, psychology today will pop up, click on that, and it will have all the therapists in your area. Also, the views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the AP, or any other APA, or any other therapist for that matter. Boom shakalaka done. Okay. I am freezing my ass off. It is 29 degrees outside in Corvallis, and I am so not used to this weather. I walked down to the corner coffee shop to meet my buddy Mark Staben from college, who I hadn't seen in like 30 years, and I realized that, yeah, I can't do things north of the Mason-Dixon line. I just can't. Anyway, I love visiting here, though. It reminds me a lot of Chico. It's a very small college town, Corvallis is, and it's really cool. It's got a lot of cool shops, a lot of cool restaurants, a lot of cool coffee places. So anyway, there that is. Burr, 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 burr with a side of burr. 29 degrees. Did I mention 29 degrees? I walked outside and there was like frost everywhere. And I'm like, what is this white stuff on the ground? I don't understand. Anyway, yeah, no, I just, no, I like warm. I do. I'll take the 110 any day. You betcha. All right. More questions that I need to answer because I didn't get a chance to finish yesterday because I had to go because my niece called me and said, let's go play. And I said, okay. So, okay. Can you describe what bipolar with psychotic features is? Okay. Bipolar with psychotic features. So there's different types of bipolar. There is, here's the, normal, or here's the level, right? The normal level. So then some people go, classic bipolar is up into the mania, then all of the feel-good chemicals dry up. So what happens in bipolar, the sun is going to be hitting really weird here. Anyway, what happens in classic bipolar is that the brain is unable to regulate the feel-good chemicals. So you've got neuroepinephrines, endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, all of this stuff floods the brain. The brain is unable to reuptake it in the proper amounts, and that causes the brain to be bathed in the feel-good chemicals, which causes the mania. Okay, I'm simplifying this, guys. I am really, really simplifying this. So it causes the mania. It's kind of like being on meth, and so you go up there and it's mania, 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 and then all of a sudden the chemicals dry up, there's no feel-good chemicals, and then boom, the person drops down into depression, and there's not enough feel-good chemicals to feel good. So it's like all of the serotonin, all of the dopamine, all of the norepinephrines, all of the everything just gets dried up, and there's nothing there to make you want to get out of bed, take a shower, nothing. So that's classic bipolar. There's other variations of it. Some people go, here's the normal level, here's the normal kind of variation, up, down, up, down, up, down. And they will drop down into depression and then back up to normal. Drop down into depression, then back up to normal. Or they'll go up into mania and then back to normal, and then up into mania and back into normal. So there's variations of it. So bipolar with psychotic features is usually when I keep trying to move over so that the sun is not in my face. Bipolar with psychotic features is when the person, usually it's in the manic phase, the person's up in the mania and they have just delusions. So for example, the psychotic features would be thinking that you're going to go to Vegas and hit the big one, and so you spend your entire life savings, or you take out loans, or you sell everything and go to Vegas and start gambling, and you're convinced that you're going to hit the big one. It's delusional thinking. It's not real. It's not normal. It's not logical. It's not, that's psychotic thinking. So when I was working at the homeless shelter, we had a little guy, God love him, who we could always tell when he went off his meds, because he would go up into this mania and he could not carry a tune in a bucket. God love him. And he would decide that he was going to Los Angeles. He was also about 65 years old. He was going to go to Los Angeles and he was going to make it big as a singer. And the guy seriously could not carry a tune in a bucket. He was tone deaf. He couldn't carry a tune. And he decided that he was going to be the next big thing. And we would have to stop him from getting on a bus to go to Los Angeles. It's like, dude, this is not going to happen. But in his mind, it was going to happen. And it was very bizarre thinking, very illogical, very impulsive. When they get into the psychotic thinking, it's very, very impulsive. It's very non-logical, non-linear, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So that's what's going on with that. So that's the psychotic features, is when they're delusional, or when they're not making a whole lot of sense, or they're impulsive, or like I said, I had another situation where one of the little guys would, go to Vegas, take what little pittance that he had, convinced he was going to win big. And of course, he would inevitably a few months later come back because he was completely broke. And yeah, it's sad. It's a very traumatizing diagnosis. And that's why it is so important that if you have got bipolar disorder, you manage it. You get onto those mood stabilizers so that you're not going off into the stratosphere and you're not sinking down into the doldrums. It's like you want that relatively normal space of up, down, up, down, up, down, as opposed to stratosphere doldrums. Do you see where I'm going with that? So, so that is bipolar with psychotic features. It's usually when they're in the manic phase. It's usually very impulsive behavior. It's very non-linear, non-logical, delusional, that kind of thing. So that is that. I hope that answered that question. Okay, so there's 2 questions I've gotten on fear and on anxiety. What is fear? How do you tell if it's real or imagined? Well, here's the thing. All fear is imagined. All fear is imagined. It's just a thought. It's a thought. That's all it is. Danger is real, but fear is a thought. So let's look at it this way. Okay, here's your amygdala, right? So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn center. This little guy is stupid. 3 O's. Stupid. Cannot tell the difference between a real threat, a thought about a real threat, daydreaming about a threat, an imagined, emotional threat, or a real emotional threat, or something that has happened in the past, okay? So all fear is false evidence appearing real. It's a thought. That's all it is. So when the amygdala perceives a threat, in other words, when it perceives a frightening thought, it lights up like a Christmas tree. So, for example, how many times have you guys ever daydreamed about something catastrophic happening? The example I like to give is, what would it have been like to be on the Titanic as it was going down? Well, if you start daydreaming about it, your body starts responding as if it were happening. Why? Because the amygdala is stupid. It can't tell the difference between you're just thinking about being on the Titanic versus you really are on the Titanic, okay? So it can't tell the difference. And so your body starts responding, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, as if you are on the Titanic. Does that make sense? So it doesn't make sense, but it does make sense. So anyway, all fear is a thought. That's all it is. It's up to us, though, to determine whether that thought, whether that fear is a real one or whether it's one that we're just doing to torment ourselves. So this plays into the next question. How do you manage anxiety? So anxiety is brought about by thoughts. It really is. If you're constantly thinking negative things, if you're constantly thinking, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if, y'all gonna drive yourself nuts. Don't do it. So it's the thoughts. If we can master our thoughts, we master anxiety. If we master what we are thinking and how we are telling it to ourselves, we master the fear. So real or imagined, all thoughts, all fear are thoughts. Now, is danger real? Yeah, putting your hand on a hot stove, that is a danger. That is real. But thinking about putting your hand on a hot stove is not. So you have to determine, is this threat imminent or am I just imagining? It's like, well, what if? What if? What if? So the way to start working with that, the way to start dealing with anxiety is you have to master your thoughts and you have to master your breathing, because it's all about how the body responds to threats, how the body responds to fear. So I'm going to talk about it again because I think this is important. So basically what it is when the amygdala perceives a threat. So a thought comes in, we generate a thought and we go, oh, what would it be like to be on the Titanic while it's going down? Oh my God, right? Heart starts pounding, Breath starts shortening because the amygdala is freaking out. And it's telling the hippocampus and the hypothalamus that sit on either side of it, oh my gosh, we need cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone. So we start tensing up, and pretty soon our ears and our shoulders become one. Now we've got teeny tiny little breaths going on. We don't have a proper oxygen CO2 exchange. That tells another part of the brain, a little further down on the brainstem, the more reptilian, the more primitive, holy shit, we're going to die. There's no oxygen CO2. So then that tells the adrenal gland that sits on top of the kidneys, oh my God, release all the energy. We need to get out of here. We need to get out of here. We need to get out of here. So adrenaline releases. Now you've got tense, not breathing, puffy little breaths, heart pounding out of your chest, racing thoughts, racing thoughts, racing thoughts, racing thoughts, racing thoughts. And at this point, you either go into a panic attack or you go into a rage attack. Or you just have generalized anxiety, which means you're just sitting there like on edge all the time. So really, it all starts with a thought. That's it. It's a thought, nothing more. And that's where you have to analyze things. That's where you have to be conscious, aware, awake, and mindful. What are you telling yourself? So as soon as you recognize it's a thought, let's say it does the whole what if thing. What if, what if, what if, what if? And you find yourself, ears and shoulders becoming one and no breath, and, your adrenaline is now hitting and all of this. First thing you have to do is shove your shoulders down, straighten up your neck, open up your chest, and you take deep, slow breaths. As slow and as deep as you possibly can. As you are doing that, you must do self-soothing talk. You have to talk yourself off the ledge. I'm safe. I'm okay. I'm not on the Titanic. The Titanic happened over 100 years ago. Everything's good. Everything's fine. I'm all right. Everything's okay. Do you see where I'm going with that? So it's self-soothing talk. So generalized anxiety is because there is a constant level of threat going on, and this little guy is recognizing threatening thoughts, threatening thoughts, threatening thoughts, threatening thoughts. And so it keeps that series of events going, the cortisol, the adrenaline, the whole thing. So really it is managing your thoughts. What are you thinking? What is your fear? What is the anxiety? Is it real, as in imminent? Okay. So for example, walking down the street at night, and there's a person up there that you don't know that looks threatening. Okay, could they be a threat? Yeah, they could. Cross the street. If that person crosses the street, pull out your phone. It's like you do things. You don't just what if it. You have a plan kind of thing. But with generalized anxiety, it's like constant fear, constant thoughts of what if, what if, what if, what if. So when we have got, everyone talks to themselves, okay? And I've talked about this before. Everybody talks to themselves. If we have a healthy internal dialogue, it's a cheerleader. It's like, hey, go you, I love you, good job. Oops, you fucked up. Okay, make amends. Okay, good, you did. All right, forgive yourself, move on. It's kind, it's gentle, it's nice. It's not what if, it's not good enough. It's nice, it's normal. It's a good parent voice, okay? If for some reason we grew up in a household that was very chaotic, anxious, lots of fighting, lots of unsaid things, kids having to pick up on stuff. We get either the not good enough, which is the self-esteem thing, not good enough, 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 not good enough. Or we get the what if, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if. So both of them are not healthy. And so the way to counter that is you have to tune in to what are you thinking? What are you telling yourself on a daily basis? How are you saying things to you? How do you perceive the world? Do you perceive the world as one ginormous threat? Or do you perceive the world as relatively benign with occasional threats? So the healthy way to look at it is relatively benign with occasional threats. But what we do when we have anxiety is everything's a threat. Everything, high alert, everything's a problem. So, and that's not normal. Because it's not normal to be up here. It's normal to be down here. And then occasionally go up there when things really are threatening. So really it is just defining for you what a real threat is. And real or imagined, it's all thoughts. It's all fear is a thought. That's it. And so we have to determine whether that thought has got validity or not. So it's really being mindful. It's going through and figuring out, what is real right now? What is a threat right now? Or is this something that I'm just creating to keep myself up at this level? So it really is mindfulness. Journaling helps a lot with anxiety. There's a couple of really good workbooks out there. There's the Fear and Anxiety Workbook, Phobia, Fear and Anxiety Workbook. I've had some people tell me that those workbooks sometimes make them more fearful. So what I would say is you go through and you flip through them and see if it resonates with you. And if it's not too threatening, go ahead and get those workbooks. So there's a whole bunch of anxiety workbooks. There's a whole bunch of different ones. You don't have to get the phobia one. You can get the anxiety workbook. I don't know who does it, but you can look it up online. So there's anxiety workbooks and breathing. Breathe. I'm not kidding you. Breathing is going to really help with your anxiety. Because when we don't have the oxygen CO2 exchange, that's what then tells another part of our brain that, oh my God, we're going to die and we need the adrenaline. And then the adrenaline kicks in and now we're shaking like a leaf and holy crap, and then we're just like cat on the ceiling kind of thing. So that is that. So I hope that answered that question on anxiety. It all has to do with breathing. I love meditation. I love yoga. Yoga is wonderful for that because it forces you to empty your mind. And it's interesting what our minds are unwilling to let go of. So when we're doing yoga, when we're doing meditation, it's really useful to know what thoughts are stuck. And why are they stuck? And why are we entertaining this thought? And how come we're inviting it in for coffee when we really should be just sending it on down the road? So journaling, meditation, yoga, really being mindful of what we are afraid of and why are we afraid of it and where did this come from and who did I learn this from? That's really, really important. So the anxiety workbook. The anxiety workbook would be a really good one. Okay, I hope that answered that question. That's how you manage anxiety, is you have to identify what is the threat, what is the fear, what is going on. So, and it's just a thought. All anxiety, all fear is our thoughts. That's it. Danger, like I said, is real, but it starts with a thought. So you have to determine, is this thought a real danger right here, right now, imminent, or is this a what if? And if it's a what if, you have to be like, thank you for your input, shut the fuck up. Why? Because I say so. I'm not inviting you in for coffee. I see you there. I got it. I got that you're fearful. I got it. You know what? There's nothing I can do about this right now. So bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. That's what you got to do. So it's sorting through the thoughts. So, and yes, when I was a child, I had a great deal of anxiety because my family was completely batshit crazy. And it is terrifying living in a family where you never know what you're going to walk into. It's like, is it going to be okay? Or is it going to be violence? Or is it going to be insanity, And a lot of our childhood causes our response, our fear response. If we've got parents that are pretty chill and they teach us how to deal with anxiety, then we generally don't have anxiety issues. If we've got parents that are like Sylvester the cat on the ceiling, then yeah, we're going to have anxiety issues. So super important to get the anxiety workbooks and start working through those. Okay, cultural issues versus actual disorder. Okay, so the question that was posed on one of the Facebook pages was, how do you know if it's a cultural thing or if it's really a disorder or, in specifics to narcissistic personality disorder? So there's a lot of cultures in this world that are very anti-female. Very anti-female. And is that narcissism? Well, no, that's cultural. Is it right? I don't think so, but who am I to say? So it's hard for people that have been raised in a culture where you are supposed to be subservient and not speak your mind and not stick up for yourself, and women are second class or third class or fourth class or fifth class, etc. So it is hard for people from cultures that do that. Is there a lot of similarities to narcissism in that? Well, yeah, honestly, but is it a cultural thing or is it an actual disorder? It's probably a cultural thing. So when there is domestic violence in cultures like that, it is very difficult for the target of abuse to leave, whether they are male or female, because there are so many stigmas against speaking up and out, and there's still stigmas here in this country against men speaking out against narcissistic abuse by females, especially if there's physical abuse going on, because they don't want to admit that, some female beat them up, or that some female is controlling them, or that some female is harming them in any way, shape, or form. There's a lot of stigma around. So cultural stuff very much does impact mental health. Absolutely. And do I have an answer for that? I don't. I don't know what to tell people that were raised in these cultures that is the norm to harm somebody or put somebody down or be controlling or whatever. So yeah, there is a lot of cultural stuff that is not cool, so to speak. So if there is violence going on, really it's a matter of, if you feel you are being abused, then you're being abused, period. No matter what the culture is. If somebody is harming you and putting you down and not allowing you to be you, that's abuse. Whatever the culture is. Because it's really, when it comes down to it, and of course this is a little Buddhist me coming out here, it's respect. Are you enhancing each other's lives, or is one member of this union trying to control, manipulate, put down, harm, hurt, etc.? And it comes down to respect. Are you being respected? Is respect being served in the relationship? If it's not, get out. And yes, there are cultural issues, and yes, there's a lot of stuff going against people in cultures where that is predominant, preventing them from leaving abusive relationships. So yeah, it's a thing. It's real. It's a thing. And I don't have an answer. I don't know what to tell people, except that if you are feeling like you are being abused, then you probably are, and you should probably get out. And it is more difficult to get out in a culture where it is unacceptable to speak up as a female. So, and it's also hard for men to get out when in a culture where it's unacceptable for men to admit that they're being abused. So it's across the board. So I hope that answered the question. I'm not sure it did, but I did want to touch on that because somebody did say, what about cultures where women are second-class citizens or third-class citizens and there's abuse going on, but it's culturally accepted. It may be culturally accepted, but we know as human beings when we're being abused. And if there is abuse, it is abuse, whether it's culturally accepted or not. And if you can, get out. You don't have to put up with that. And it is more difficult in a situation where the entire country is like, no, this is okay. So, that's a thing. All right, I hope that answered the question. Okay, NPD, BPD, bipolar, antisocial personality disorder, and addiction. Discuss. Holy shit. Wow! Okay, so here's the thing. When people have got mental health issues going on and they are self-medicating, there's an addiction issue going on. They're self-medicating. So oftentimes what I found working in the homeless shelter is somebody with, depression or bipolar or anxiety or whatever would be self-medicating, and they would be very much addicted to whatever it is they were using to try to make themselves feel normal. So especially with bipolar, when somebody sits down on my couch and says that they're a meth addict and a heroin addict, I know I'm dealing with somebody that has an undiagnosed bipolar disorder. So, and that's when I go, you need a psych eval and you need to get this handled and you need to get on real meds and not street meds, because street meds are never, ever, ever going to make you feel normal. Excuse me. But this is what they do, because there is so much stigma about having a mental health disorder, which, okay, here's the thing. It's like bipolar is no different than diabetes, really. There's just a part of your brain that is not functioning correctly, so you need the medication to help the reuptake and to keep the feel-good chemicals at the right level so that you're not going off into outer space and you're not dropping down into the doldrums. So it's just like, diabetes, when the is it the pancreas? Yeah, when the pancreas doesn't produce insulin, it's like, you need something to help boost the insulin. So it's no different than that. There's just a part of your body that's not working correctly, and you need the right proper pharmaceutical medications to help with that, as opposed to street drugs, because you don't know what you're getting with anything. You don't know what you're getting in heroin. You don't know what you're getting with meth. You don't know. That's why people drop dead every single year, because somebody has stepped on it with something that nobody knows, and it's dangerous, and there you go. So narcissistic personality disorder, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder, they can be misdiagnosed as bipolar because there are mood swings with both narcissism and mostly with borderline. So there's mood swings involved. And so that oftentimes gets misdiagnosed as bipolar. There's also post-traumatic stress disorder that is being overlooked. Now, one of the questions was, can you talk more about how narcissism is not based in trauma? Okay, here's the deal. I do believe that nature and nurture are at play. Abso-freaking-lutely. Okay, I'll have to respond to that later. Nature and nurture are at play. They are. You know, you can have children from the same family and one kid will have a disorder and the rest of them will be okay. So nature, nurture, column A, column B, yeah. So narcissism and borderline, okay, the working theory is that they're both based in trauma. I'm thinking not so much. I believe borderline is abso-freaking-lutely, because what I have seen is if the person with the borderline personality disorder actually works on themselves, like actually works on themselves, takes the tools learned in DBT, does the program, really works hard on the original trauma, they can manage if they catch it in time, if they get their ego out of the way, and if they actually use the tools taught in the DBT year-long program. So that, I believe, is based in trauma, abso-freaking-lutely. With narcissism, it's like the ego never goes away. They never work on it. No matter how much trauma has been supposedly worked on, they're still narcissists. So that's why I'm saying I think that's a mistake. I don't think it's completely based in trauma. I don't. I really don't. And I do believe that there are people out there on the internet that are using the trauma as an excuse for their behavior and are selling a bill of goods, telling people that they can cure narcissism. It's not going to happen. So anyway, I'm just going by personal observation. And as newer research comes out, I do not believe it is completely trauma-based. I really don't. I really believe that there is very much a genetic component to that. So that's why I say I don't think it's completely trauma-based. I don't. Because with people with BPD can work on it and work on the trauma and actually manage the disorder and, you know, correct the behavior and emotionally regulate. Whereas narcissists, they just keep using and abusing and ego. And that is not trauma-based. There is something else going on. So antisocial personality disorder, okay? Antisocial personality disorder is the belief that you are above the law, that the laws don't apply to you, that you can do whatever the heck you want, and why should the police arrest you? So, you know, there's this sense of entitlement, which is very similar to narcissism. So when you get down towards the malignant end of the spectrum, okay, when you are actively harming people and you are enjoying it, okay, somebody's asking, okay, if they're malignant, are they, but they don't meet all the criteria? Well, yeah, they do. I can guarantee you're missing something. So once somebody is malignant, they probably have all of the criteria and they probably have multiple issues going on. So hold on a second. At the malignant end of the spectrum, remember, you've got narcissism, you've got Machiavellianism, which is control freak, and you've got psychopathy, which is antisocial. So you need to start taking a look at all the other different personality disorders because they all start overlapping and melding when they get down towards the end of the spectrum and they're malignant. So they may not meet the full criteria for one, but I can guarantee you they probably meet the full criteria for something else. So like antisocial or borderline or, you know, histrionic or avoidant or paranoid or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is, I believe, that. And when you've got somebody who has an addiction, who's being their own pharmacist, that's trying to self-medicate and keep the bipolar at bay, it's hard to tell what else is going on because every single street drug has got reactions. You know, they've got, you need to get the addiction handled first. You got to get the addiction handled first. You've got to get all the street drugs off. And then you go back in and you figure out what the heck is going on. Now, the funny thing of it is addiction and narcissistic personality disorder are very similar, because when somebody is addicted, they are very, very selfish, very entitled. They've got a very bizarre way of thinking. But it is different than narcissistic personality disorder. With narcissistic personality disorder, once the addiction comes off, they're still narcissists. With a person that is suffering from addiction and probably bipolar, once the addiction is off, once the street drugs are off, and you cope with the bipolar, there is no narcissism. So that's it. It's a very complicated thing. It really is. And with antisocial personality disorder, they break laws. They don't believe that rules apply to them. They are constantly con artists. They are constantly trying to con somebody or steal something or, whatever. And again, this is where I'm talking the malignant end of the spectrum, okay? So they're all different. If you are interested in reading up on the criteria, just go to the DSM-5, or you can look up Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic will have all the different causes, symptoms, criteria, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a great place to go. But basically, when there is addiction on top of everything else, it's hard to tell what's going on until you get the addiction handled and you get the street drugs off of that person's brain, because you're not going to be able to tell, is it narcissism? Is it bipolar? Is it what the heck's going on? So there that is. I hope that answered the question. And if they're malignant, then they have probably definitely meet the criteria for some other personality disorder. Because you can't be malignant and only have traits of. So there it is. Okay, I hope that answered that question. Okay, so more on furries. Okay, so I honestly, I don't know much about the culture. I don't. And I probably don't want to, is what Chris told me. He was like, don't look that up. I'm like, okay. But basically, the question was, when somebody lives that person or that persona 24/7 and never drops it, is that a problem? Well, here's the thing. With anything in this world, it's only a problem when it is a problem. And people don't go get help for things until it becomes a problem. So is it healthy? Probably not. If the person is pushing down who they really are to become a fake persona, then yeah, that's probably not real normal. Is it harmful? Yes, no, Is it a mental health issue? Well, it can be if they never drop that character and they don't really be who they are. So oftentimes, it's kind of like method acting. Okay, so it's like when actors delve into these characters, like Heath Ledger, bless his heart, they delve into these characters, they become these characters, they lose who they really are, and the character takes over. That's dangerous. That really is, because you're losing who you are in order to become a different character. It's kind of like, it reminds me of, and I don't know if this is a true story or not, but Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier were acting in Marathon Man. And Dustin Hoffman had kept himself up for 3 or 4 nights trying to get that into that character where they've been kept up 3 or 4 nights or whatever. And Laurence Olivier breezes in and looks at him and says, "Why don't you try acting, my dear boy?" So that always cracked me up. Whether that is a real story or not, I don't know. But it's kind of like that, where you lose yourself to this persona or this character and you don't know who you are anymore. That's dangerous. So, obviously. So, there it is. And so the question was also, how can you protect kids that are going to go to Comic-Cons and things like that? Well, again, stranger danger. You don't want strangers touching you. You don't want strangers making inappropriate sexual, suggestions or whatever. And every single Comic-Con I have ever been to, they very much talk about how costumes are not consent. And that is, very much there. There is always going to be a segment that is going to be inappropriate, and you just let authorities know, you let the security know, this person's bothering me, I don't want them around me. And, stranger danger, just like when we were kids, it's like strangers don't get to touch you, it's like, it's only okay if you're an adult and you give consent, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, And how can you tell who the creeps are? You can't, because you're at a convention, people are in costume, you can't necessarily always read faces or body language or whatever, but if somebody invades your personal space, you don't want them there, you tell them no, no and I mean it. And again, it's a boundary issue. It's a self-esteem issue. So people with good self-esteem, people with good boundaries are able to go, no, and I mean it. And, hopefully the person will back off. So, yeah, you can't always tell who the creeps are at the Comic-Cons, because if they're in full costume and their faces are covered and you can't see their intent, or you can't read the body language, or you can't read the, whatever. I mean, because oftentimes you can tell a person's intent by the look on their face or their body language. But if they're in full costume, you don't get that information. So just, common sense, boundaries, personal space, say no, no and I mean it. And if somebody is bothering them, tell them to go to the security or to report them to who's running the Comic-Con. So yeah, it's a thing. And it does happen. I mean, people do get inappropriately touched sometimes, but it's getting less and less, I've noticed, because for one thing, it's much more, people are much more aware, and people are a lot less willing to put up with stuff. So, you just talk to them. It's like anything else, stranger danger, personal boundaries, personal space, know when I mean it, and, like that. So there that is. What causes narcissistic personality disorder? Again, nature, nurture. Who knows? A little from column A, a little from column B. It's really hard to say because, like I said, you can have one family where there is one person has a personality disorder and the rest of the kids are fine. So nature, nurture, I do think it is a little from column A, a little from column B. I do not believe it is completely rooted in trauma. I do not. Because if borderlines are able to work on the trauma and to manage and to start emotionally regulating, then what is the problem with narcissists? Okay, yeah, there you go. So, yeah, I think there's something else going on. I really do. And as new research comes out, they are moving away from the trauma-based theory because it doesn't match, it doesn't completely cover what's going on with narcissists. So, all right, there that is. Okay, then the last question was on, let's see if I can find it here. Hang on. It was on schizoaffective disorder. So, schizoaffective, disorder. There we go. All right, so somebody wanted me to talk about what schizoaffective disorder is. All right, so what it is, it's not full-blown schizophrenia. Okay, it's a chronic mental health condition characterized by symptoms of schizophrenia, such as hallucinations or delusions, and symptoms of a mood disorder, such as mania or depression. So it's kind of like a combination, and that's why it's called schizoaffective. It doesn't match the criteria for full-blown schizophrenia, but it also does not match the full-blown bipolar. So there's a mood disorder going on. It's less well studied than other ones. Symptoms can be hallucinations, delusions, which are false, fixed beliefs that are held regardless of contradictory evidence. Disorganized thinking. A person may switch very quickly from one topic to another or provide answers that are completely unrelated. Depressed mood. If a person has been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, depressive type, they will experience feelings of sadness, emptiness, feelings of worthlessness, or other symptoms of depression. Manic behavior. If a person has been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type, they will experience feelings of euphoria, racing thoughts, increased risky behavior, and other symptoms. What are the causes? Genetics, brain chemistry, drug use, and I will have to answer that later. Psychoactive drugs such as LSD have been linked to the development of schizoaffective disorder. So obviously there is a genetic component to it. So some people are more susceptible to developing it after using psychoactive drugs like LSD, ayahuasca, things like that. So it can be difficult to diagnose because it has symptoms of both schizophrenia with either depression or bipolar disorder. There are two major types of schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type and depressive type. To be diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, a person must have the following symptoms: a period during which there is a major mood disorder, either depression or mania, that occurs at the same time that symptoms of schizophrenia are present. Delusions or hallucinations for 2 or more weeks in the absence of major mood disorder. or a major mood episode. Symptoms that meet the criteria for a major mood episode are present for the majority of the total duration of the illness. The abuse of drugs or medication are not responsible for the symptoms. So that is schizoaffective. I hope that answered your question. So it's a combination of schizophrenic behavior combined with either depression or mania or both. So that's what schizoaffective is. And it can have obsessive thoughts. It can be, fixated like, oh, this person wore this color sweater as a signal to me that they want to meet me for coffee or whatever. Thoughts that are not logical, that kind of thing. So anyway, I hope that answered that question. Alrighty then. Well, those were all the questions that I had for today. Hopefully it's warming up. The sun is out. So when I checked last time, it was 29 degrees outside. Woo! Anyway, there is that. So, all right, keep the questions coming. We are going to be doing a California tour. We have moved it to February just because I need to take a bit of a break. So we're going to be doing California in February. We are probably going to be doing San Diego, Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, San Francisco, Sacramento, and then I'm going to go visit my family in Chico. So there is that. Then we are also doing Texas and Louisiana, and I think that's it for now. And yeah. Okay, so I'll let you know as those come up. If you want me to come visit you in your city, please go to Chris, CHRIS at Mercury.com, MURCURI, Mercury.com, and let him know where you would like me to come visit. As soon as we get 10 or more people in the same area, I can book a tour there. So there that is. I hope that answered all the questions today. Keep your questions coming, and I will be doing another live show next Sunday. Have not decided what the topic is yet, but there it is. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.